Now, though, we're going to move on with a look at what's grabbing the headlines in the newspapers here in France with Flo Volumino. Hi there.
Hi, Kat.
And we're going to start off with a bit of a businessy story, actually, very much business story, in fact. Papers reacting to a decision from the French government to save about 400 jobs at a train factory in the east of France, a very historic factory. People have really been following this story for weeks, haven't they?
It's a huge story. This is the Alstom Belfort plant. It's a very historic plant. It's been open for nearly 140 years.
And it's pretty much since trains were invented, right?
Exactly. It's where the very first steam engine was built in France. So lots of emotion around the fate of this plant. Well, yesterday, the government said it's going to buy 15 extra TGV trains from Alstom to be able to keep this plant open. So good news, right? This plant is going to be saved. The jobs are going to be saved.
And we get new trains.
Which
is always nice.
But, it's quite surprising, actually. This whole deal is being met with an outcry in the press today. You just saw the front page of Les Echos, the main business paper, which is calling this the government's patch-up job. Now, why is there all this criticism? Well, the thing is, these trains aren't really needed. These are 15 high-speed TGV trains that are going to be run on slow-speed tracks between cities. So it's kind of like using a racehorse for just a small errand, especially. And also, so these trains are going to be used to their full potential. And also, it's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to cost 450 million euros.
Okay, so costing a lot of public money, saving a lot of jobs, however. It's going to be popular with some people, surely, and we are in the run-up to an election.
That's right. The timing of this deal, of course, is what everyone's focusing on. Let's take a look at Le Figaro. Le Figaro, the right-wing paper. Lots of train puns, it must be said, in the paper today. You can see they're talking about high-speed electioneering. The government's plan to save Belfort is bizarre. It's clearly just to fish for votes in the 2017 presidential election, but it's very costly. And Le Figaro actually pulled out its calculator today and did the math. Now, if you break it down, so we're talking about 450 million euros, we're going to save about 400 jobs. That's going to cost about a million euros for each job saved. So quite a lot of money, right?
That is a lot of money.
The government has gone off the tracks. Train pun today. That's
noted. Number two.
We're counting. Number two. So this is a political victory. It's good for the people whose jobs are going to be saved, but this is going to be a short-lived victory that could have some heavy political consequences in the long run. Because if you see one industry being saved, you see one factory being saved, a lot of people are going to say, well, why don't you save my factory too? The government isn't going to be able to save every single struggling factory in France, and so this is going to lead to a lot of disgruntled workers. And Le Figaro in this article says that all those disgruntled workers are going to go running into the arms of the far-right National Front Party.
Okay, that's quite some prediction there. Several other papers talking about this as well. They agree that the price of saving Alstom is disproportionately high. People also saying that there are perhaps other places where the government could be spending this money.
That's right, because unemployment is really high in France. Alstom is actually a company that's doing pretty well otherwise, so perhaps that money should go somewhere else. Let's take a look at the front page of L'Opinion, the pro-business paper. They're talking about the delirious Alstom plan. And I must admit, this wins the prize for the best cartoon in a long time. Now, this echoes Wallace and Gromit. You might remember that scene.
What a classic.
Crazy scene where they're building the tracks as you go along. Well, you can see here François Hollande. He is, Wallace, I guess, while Gromit there adds the tracks. You might see on that little box where the tracks are coming out of, it says France's industrial strategy. So it seems like the government is improvising as it goes along.
All right. Props to whoever did that cartoon.
Cac the cartoonist.
Fantastic. Well, other papers, though, talking about this, saying that the government doesn't seem to have any clear industrial strategy at all in any area.
That's right. L'Humanité, which is the communist paper here in France, it actually agrees with the pro-business paper L'Opinion. So, wow, that is quite a...
Is that the first time ever?
It might be the first time ever. You can see they're talking about this speedy safety operation, but that it actually doesn't seem like this is part of any real strategy. It seems like the government is using the presidential election in 2017. It's kind of using that as the map. But has the government looked beyond 2017? That's what L'Humanité wants to know. What comes next? That's really the big question in the papers today. And I must admit, there's a really funny article in Slate today, which says that, buying TGV trains for small distances to save Alstom has given other struggling sectors a lot of ideas. We were talking about that a little earlier. It says, for instance, France's steel industry is struggling, so perhaps the government should order 300 Eiffel Towers. That would definitely create a lot of jobs, perhaps save part of the steel industry. And what would it do with these Eiffel Towers? Well, it could make them into antennas, it could turn them into wind turbines, or it could put cords between them to hang up the Republic's laundry.
Interesting indeed. All right, let's move on to some more sort of pure French politics for politics watchers among you. The opposition, Les Républicains, gearing up for the start of this election, really, the primary that it's holding next month. It is looking like it's going to be a very tight race between two big characters who are seen as the frontrunners.
That's right. Alain Juppé, the former mayor of Bordeaux, and of course the former president, Nicolas Sarkozy, they're neck and neck, and they have, they're really picking up steam here with the finish line in sight. They're talking about the war of the rallies here because this is quite funny. They're actually kind of stepping on each other's toes. For instance, Alain Juppé was planning to hold a public meeting in Marseille on October 27th. Well, it turns out that Nicolas Sarkozy decided to hold another rally out in the same city on the same day. So it seems like they're kind of stepping on each other's toes.
Okay, and a brief word about the former economy minister, Emmanuel Macron. Will he, won't he? What's he up to?
Well, he will he run in the election? That is a big question. He certainly did hold a rally yesterday in Strasbourg. Le Parisien says that he was revealing his presidential ambitions a little bit more. He outlined his plan to revitalize democracy, calls on citizens to have more of a voice to destabilize the system. You can see they're talking about his lesson in democracy.
Oh my goodness, political arguments aplenty to come. Thanks very much for that. Flo Villamino there with our press review.